quadratic function f of x is equal to x squared minus 4x, whose vertex is 2, negative 4, and the x-intercepts of 0, 0, and 4, 0, we want to determine when f of x is less than 0 and when f of x is greater than or equal to 0. So for this function, x squared minus 4x, I've gone ahead and graphed the function. I labeled the vertex here as 2, negative 4. In addition, I've labeled the x-intercepts of 0, 0, and 4, 0. So we're being asked to locate a couple of pieces of information here. First of all, when f of x is less than 0. So that is when our y values are less than 0 or below the x-axis. So that's going to be everywhere in this interval here. So for each of these x values, the corresponding y value is negative or less than 0. So the x values for which f of x is less than 0 would be from this x value, which is the first coordinate here of the first x-intercept, to this x value. So from 0 to 4. For all x values between 0 and 4, the graph is below the x-axis. So it is from 0 to 4. Now, since we're being asked for f of x less than 0, I want to use parentheses on both of these endpoints. The next part of the question is to determine when f of x is greater than or equal to 0. So f of x is greater than or equal to 0. So it's in this interval here. This function, this graph, is above the x-axis to the left of this x-intercept 0, 0, as well as in this interval here to the right of the x-intercept 4, 0. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to name this interval and this interval together to answer the question when f of x is greater than or equal to 0. For the interval on the left, this is from negative infinity up to 0. For this inequality, we're being asked when is it greater than or equal to 0. So that endpoint, because of the or equal to part, I want to go ahead and include that 0. Now I want to go ahead and name this interval on the right. And so that's for the x value of 4 to infinity. So we have from 4 to infinity. Recalling that negative infinity, positive infinity, always gets a parenthesis. Now, again, for the same reason as the 0 here, when x is 4, the corresponding y value is 0. We're being asked when is f of x greater than or equal to 0. So I want to use a square bracket here as well. So we have two intervals which we want to join together, and we do that by using a union. So we have found when f of x is less than 0 in the interval 0 to 4, as well as when f of x is greater than or equal to 0, and that's the interval from negative infinity to 0 and 4 to infinity, inclusive of those endpoints.